Hello, I am Jameson and welcome to my channel. In this series, I am logging my weekly training as I progress from being at one of my lifetime lows all the way to completing a full Ironman triathlon. Like forging a weapon, you start with raw material. You process it through fire and work away the slag. You quench it with water to lock in its strength. And then you sharpen and fine-tune it to bring it to its peak optimal performance. In this case, I am the raw material. So please, show your support as I go through the process to forge an Ironman.
So it's the last full week of the year, and I decided to freshen up a little bit by getting myself a haircut. I think I'm going to keep the beard for just a little bit longer. You know, it's kind of growing on me. This week was okay. I did 4.5 hours of cycling, spread between 3 days, which comes out to 90 minutes per day. So far since I started biking, these are the longest rides I've done. And I can really tell it's endurance, not just because I'm getting a little bit bored, but when I think that my pace is just slow enough, when I look at the clock and I still have about 20 to 30 minutes to go and my body feels the way that it does, that sort of gives me an indication of what endurance is all about. I've been starting with at least a couple bottles of water and a water with some branched chain amino acids. But in the next coming weeks, I think I'm going to need a little bit more. I want to keep with the amino acids, but I think I also need to add in a little bit more electrolyte. Now, as for my run, I have to admit that I've been a little bit slack on keeping up with my stretching and my injury prevention. Typically for my feet, that would involve stretching back my toes in all the different directions, stretching my ankles, massaging it all. But this week I started to get some particular pains in my left foot. Since I started back with running, I made sure to really work on correcting my form. And that means letting my foot plant at just a little bit of a different angle than I used to. I've actually been working a little bit more on my hip mobility, particularly my internal rotation, and that's really corrected the way that I plant my foot as to land a little bit more flat or up toward the ball of my foot. That being said, my feet are having to adjust to the different forces that they hadn't been used to in the past. The muscles having to work at just slightly different angles and pressures. So this week I decided to actually cut my running short after I started feeling those pains in my foot. I really can't afford to get a serious injury this early on, especially if it's something like a stress fracture, which I pray that it's not. So I'm taking my time to really stretch it out and give it the massage and care that it needs. And sure enough, as I work my feet, I find more little pressure points that are just aching horribly. And most of it's kind of difficult to get into because it's really deep tissue. And so because of this, I've decided to sort of change up my plan a little bit. As I give progressive overload on my running mileage, I'll still continue to do the 10% rule. However, each third week, I will drop back by 60% and then pick it up where I left off for the next week. The aim is to allow my legs to recover from all the pounding on the pavement. I did pick up another piece of training equipment this week, which I'm excited about. A couple of years back, I had purchased a barbell, and so I've had my barbell laying around for a while, but with no bumper plates. And now that I finally have a little bit of cash, I finally got on Facebook Marketplace and went and picked up some bumper plates. I know that not all triathletes are really into strength training, but for my body type in particular, I really like to try to keep my body held together, and I really feel that it's important to get some good strength training in. Key thing for me to pay attention to is my lower back, because yes, just a couple months ago I was having problems with my sciatic, but that's why I believe that strength training is going to help me to protect myself and avoid injury, assuming that I don't do something stupid during that training. It's been a while since I've really touched any of the weights, so my body's still a bit weak. For what I'm training for though, I don't plan to get super heavy. I'm not attempting to become a power lifter or an Olympic lifter, but there are some key strength exercises that I think are really important and critical for any athlete. So with the limited equipment that I have, I'm going to make the most of it. As of right now, I'm going to sort of avoid doing strict deadlifts, primarily because of my lower back. And also due to the lack of having a rack, I'm not going to be doing any back squats. But that's fine, also because that puts a lot of compression on the lower back. So what I'll be doing instead is I'll be working on my sumo squat. Generally, because of the angle of the sumo squat, you can usually pull a lot heavier weight than just a regular deadlift. As of right now, I only have a pair of 45-pound bumper plates. Next week, I'll have a couple more. So I have to be sort of careful about how much weight I'm adding to the exercises because I don't have many options yet. Basically, any increment is going to be 90 pounds. I have time, I'm not in a rush to add weight. I'm just excited to be including it in my training. But again, since I don't have a rack to do back squats, I can simply just clean the bar and practice my front squats. You usually have a little bit less of a mechanical advantage in the front squat as you do the back squat. So that means that using less weight, I can still get some pretty decent training in during the front squat. Also, a couple of interesting lifts I'll be practicing is the original form for the hack squat and the more modern deadlift version of the hack squat. As for my training plan, I have a Google Sheet that I've made public, and I will leave a link to that in the description. So go check that out and tell me what you think. It's not complete yet, but I'm always looking at it and sort of making adjustments. As for swimming, hopefully by next week, I'll be able to get my pool membership. And then at that point, I will finally be able to say that I am training for a triathlon.